All right, well, welcome everyone to NIAMRI's October Member Spotlight. This month, we have the Sunswine group. That's kind of hard to say fast. And it's before we introduce our speakers, I'd like to go through a few housekeeping items. So we're using Zoom webinar format. That means your audio line is muted. We'll take questions at the end of the presentation. However, during the presentation, you're welcome to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions at the in the Q&A area. We're recording this webinar and we'll post it on Exchange later this week. And the slides are not going to be available after the webinar. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers. We have Casey Bradley, who's the president and founder of Sunswine, and Liliana Nolasco, senior data analytics strategist with the company. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you, Casey and Liliana.
Well, being named the Sunswine group, I'm just gonna thanks the group for the opportunity, but I had to put some pigs on there. But please don't be fooled. We're a little bit more than just pigs, but there's a story behind the name of our company. And it was basically a poster I had in college by Anne Griffin, who photographs babies dressed up as flowers. Well, she had one that was pigs dressed up as sunflowers. And of course, I love that. And so the name Sunswine has stuck with me forever. I've had email addresses, my Twitter, and decided to name my business after that poster. But for today's introduction to the Sunswine group, I'm going to give you a little bit more background about us. We're going to talk about data management and data integration. Dr. Liliana Nolasco will cover that, as she's our key data scientist, and then go through some case studies and then wrap it up at the end for some questions. So we have a small but mighty team. These are our main team that's employed under the Sunswine group, but we have partners in Ecuador and South Africa and different places that help us on different projects and different expertise that we need, depending on the type of project work that we work on. We have three kind of main services. I'd like to talk about how we help business to business, then business to consumer, and then potentially as the consumer. But in our case, businesses serving the livestock industry, the animal nutrition and health space. And then we work with producers on nutrition and production needs as well. And then we work with individuals. So we have different programs, short courses, corporate training, or one-on-one coaching that we offer. And kind of this is, I can't believe when I say it's been 3.5, almost 4 years, but we started out in spring 2020. I didn't know really what I wanted to be, but luck had it. My transition on my own went really well. And with COVID, I had a lot of time. And so I started the program called Coffee and Careers in Animal Science, where we basically introduced graduate students to different careers within the animal science and professionals. And that's grown into, we're able to give scholarships away and host different events. And then from there, I launched the Real P3 podcast. That's specifically been driven by the swine industry, but we do from time to time bring in other insights and try to, as we call it, break down the silos and learn from each other. And then in 2021, some of my silent partners came in and we kind of launched at the time what we called Agismo Analytics and developed a data entry app called Easy Entry. And that was really kind of my evolution into data science. You know, we do a lot of research, and that's kind of my expertise in what we do a lot and work with producers and companies on research. But really, this was, how can we use data? There was a hole that I saw in the marketplace of, we have all this data that's coming in, but how do we utilize that to make decisions? And so that's kind of that jump start into today's topic. But then most recently, as we're getting into the nutritional solutions, we are starting our own animistic nutritional services. So we do consulting for producers, and most recently, and if all goes well, we'll be in Walmart stores. We're at least on walmart.com at the moment, but hopefully we will have a full retail line in the future of the Sunswine Group. But now I'll turn it over to Dr. Nolasco.
Hi, I'm very thank you for having me here. And I have a background in poultry science, so I have been with Dr. Casey for the past 2 years. So I have to learn more about data and how to use effectively data management tool to provide a better solution to our customers, since data is undeniable one of the most valuable resource within any organization. It is everywhere. It can be numbers, pictures, video, words, measurement, observation, you name it, and it can be analyzed. And for the past decades, data has done nothing but grow exponentially. And just to give you some perspective, Google processes more than 40,000 searches per second, which is equal to 3.5 billion per day, 1.2 trillion per year. YouTube has almost 2 billion users. So there is a need to analyze this massive amount of data. And despite the fact that data is growing, a survey conducted by a company called Enterprises, which provide consumer report to companies. They surveyed different companies and they found that 66% of the surveyed company lack a centralized data strategy to improve and maintain data quality. So if we can move to the next slides, please. So data itself, it's useless. We need to analyze it. We need to transform it. So with the massive volume of data that we currently are generated, we have a greater need to understand it. And there is the challenge that we have more data related problems. Next one. So that is why data management is in place to delimit the process for collecting, storing, organizing, securing, maintaining, and utilizing data in a structured and efficient manner to meet the information needs of an organization. Another way to say it is just to develop the different architecture, policy, practices, and procedure to manage the data lifecycle. But we need to secure that that data management needs to be effective because we need to maintain data integrity. Next one. So what data management is just a combination of multiple disciplines, and this is over like 11 or 12 of those disciplines. We notice how data integration is part of those disciplines, and they interact within each other. They need to have a synergy and like a very communication. We see how the first one is data governance, because this is like the frameworks, provide a framework for all the different disciplines. And in the next slide, we will have, like, I like this picture because it's a better way for us to understand how these interactions of these disciplines happen. This is the a pyramid developed by Peter Aiken. Who is Peter Aiken? He's a data strategist that has more than 30 years of experience. He has been provided consultant services to companies like Nokia and the US Department of Defense. He has authored many books related to data management, and he also is currently working as a professor of Virginia University. I think Virginia Commonwealth University. So he created these to explain to stakeholders, that people that don't know much about data management disciplines, how these different disciplines interact. And it all begins with the blue layers. And this data management journey, it begins with a company purchasing a application. So that application to integrate the data will provide a data security, data storage and operation, and data modeling and design. After that is fulfilled, then the company moves to data architecture, data quality, and metadata. And notice how data governance is in the like the foundation and like an umbrella embracing all the different disciplines. So only when we have consolidating these 3 down layers is we will be able to enable the functions in the upper layer, ultimately having the very last, the tip, which is the data analytics and big data. Next one. So what is data integration? Is the process of collecting and consolidating data from all sources into one single data set or data warehouse. So it requires one person or a system to locate, clean, retrieve, and present the data. Some of the examples of possible process is merging data from different applications, consolidating business processes, or create a database management system, or integrated custom-built and third-party APIs. Next one. So now I'm going to talk about forms, primary forms of data integration. And the very first one is very popular on the manufacturing sector because it kind of uses the lot technology that it extracts data, transform it, and load it into a data set or a target source. Real-time data integration, also known as data streaming, is like constantly moving data from the different data sources into the target data. It is kind of, you can have the data almost in real time or near real time. Data replication, it involves copying data from different sources and moving that into a target system. And I'm going to show you one examples that where we apply this kind of form of data replication. Data visualization, it provides you like a virtual layers where you can access and query data from multiple sources. And the last one is, well, very familiar with this. This is manual data integration, where a person manually combines data from different sources using tools like spreadsheet. So in the following slide, next slide, we will I will talk about different approaches. And the very first approach is manual data integration, which I just explained about that. And there are some advantages, which is reduced cost because there is not, you don't need to purchase any software. It's a greater freedom because the person that is orchestrating everything decides and make the changes. The disadvantage of having this approach is less access because just one person can have access to that information. He needs to orchestrate all the data integration process. It is very difficult to do scaling. It is manually data integration can be useful when you are working with very small data sets, but when you start combining multiple data sets, you will need to change the coding, and that's, of course, it takes time, and of course it will give rooms for error, to introduction of human errors. The next approach is middleware data integration. And this is just a software that connects and transfers data between applications and databases. And this kind of software is utilized on those enterprises that is still using legacy system, which is an outdated software that doesn't have a room to grow, but is still functioning within a company. So to connect the information coming from those outdated software with new ones, we need a software. And this is this approach, and the advantage is that it's enhancing data streaming because data is moving and it's moving across different departments. But one of the disadvantages is like this less access because this kind of software needs to be installed and maintained by the provider, the software provider, and it's limited functionality because they cannot work with every system. So for us to establish this kind of data integration, it needs to consider the different systems that are in place in a company. The next type of data integration is application-based integration. It's very similar, like there's one software communicating, extracting data from different applications. Again, it simplifies the process because the data transfer is conducted automatically. It's easier exchange, less resource. You just do it once and the data moves smoothly. Again, it's limited access because the provider needs to be there to deploy and to do maintenance. Inconsistent results because since this approach is unstandardized, so all these services that provide this kind of application-based integration, they will lead you to a different results. So it's a complicated setup and difficult to manage. That's why it requires the company technician to do all the deployment and maintenance. The next approach is the next slide. Is a uniform access integration. Okay, so it aims to consistent and standardized way to access and interact with various data sources. It is lower storage because data doesn't need to be stored. It's easier access, simplified view. It kind of connect like disparate source of data sources. Again, when data is being pulled from different data sources, there is a data integrity issue. It is more likely like your data will be compromised in the data integrity. So that's one of the disadvantages. It's a strained system because currently the host where data is stored cannot handle the massive frequency of these actions that needs to be performed within that system. So that's another disadvantage. So, so a data management, a data platform is not just one specific tool. There is an assembly of different tools and different services. And here I'm just showing different applications that can provide help in the different approach that I just mentioned. If you want to have a software to extract data from different applications, or if you just want to have your data management. So this is the message that I want to show here, that it also will end up depending on what the company, the nature of data the company has, and the process and the current software that they are using. The next slide, please. So what has, we as a company, as Casey said, we have developed this, we have helped other companies to improve the data management. We have the capability to customize data through a different platform. It can be AWS or Microsoft or any other platform of choice. We have the experience of database architecture, and as Casey say, we have our own application tool that it sends data with no coding experience. It's very user-friendly, send data to the cloud, into the database. So it can be done from the point of collection or massively be uploaded through an Excel. So it has different features that can adapt to the customer's need. So we have been using this, and with this we can have real-time data. So in our next slide is just one demonstration where we have a kind of data replication form for data integration, where we subtract the USDA daily corn prices from the USDA webpage. So this is extracted and put it into the targets data source, and we then build our visual. What we have in the x-axis is just the prices, like the day, and we see the curve, the pattern, how the prices have moved for the last 3 months. We see at the right side that we have the filter that just say last 3 months, but this is a dynamic report where you can select either 10 months backward, and it also shows you what is the change, the price change between yesterday and today, and that is the 0.05 in number in green color. And we also have like the average, like weekly average. The other things that we have, this connection is conducted through an API, and it is conducted automatically, so nobody is doing this manually. And in addition to that, the orange area that you can see there is a forecasting model that can make predictions for futures. And with this information, companies can make decisions in their process.
And this example was developed just a little bit. We have some more complicated models that we have done, or economic models for producers, but this is just a basic level example of how we've taken outsourced the data and we can pull that in to our business model. So this is just tracking that we can, I look at this all the time, but some other tools that we use on market conditions and economics is CME. They have a little bit different standards of being able to access that data. Sometimes they will charge you to create your own API into that data set. And so at least with the USDA, that is an open access data source. So we didn't require any licensing uses of their data. And it's just a way for me to keep track of feed costs, but also this type of data from the USDA. We are tying that into some of our customers' economic models. And so we have that capability of that example of showing you an API.
Yeah. So this is an example of ETL integration, because these are feed quality test results. And I say this is kind of sample because we needed to transform the data from PDF to a readable format. So we transform from PDF to an Excel, and then we upload this into our database, and we conducted our analysis. So what we have here is mineral parameter, results of mineral parameter. The upper lines just present different filtering options that I can, if I want to deep down into this parameter and see and filter by farm, by specific diet, by presentation, by meal. And this kind of setup, it depends of what is the research question, what do I want to see from my visual. So if we were in the, no, just go back, Casey. If we were in the dynamic dashboard, and if I select the farm, one specific farm, all the visuals are going to change. And notice here in my pie chart, I have 2 units, measurement units. I have the percentage and ppm. So the way that this dashboard has set up is that when I click one of the area of, it can be for any unit measurement, all the dashboards are going to change, all the visuals are going to change, showing me that unit that I have just selected. So from this, we also can have, from the same analysis, I can have like an overall filter. And in this case, this is the same analysis, but right now it is showing me amino acids parameter. And this is, again, have the same filter options. And I can have like an overall perspective of like more data into just one place.
And I was going to say, this was kind of brought up because we manage a lot of different species and a lot of different customers. And so we wanted quick access to look at our data. The PDFs are a challenge, and depending on the system, you can get some labs that you can get into their LIMS system and get Excel output, but we've actually found a way through Excel to convert PDFs into data, which then we upload and integrate here. So we still have some manual work that we have to do right now, but if we had our own lab, we would connect our LIMS system into that. And so this is kind of a way for me to monitor my customers, but also give them a visual report to say, this farm's feed's not right, because we work across different toll mills and all kinds of things that you can imagine. So that's kind of where we use to guide ourselves on what's our best mills, what's maybe the best ration, and looking at feed quality, or if we know a problem, we can go back and look at historical trends as well, and then also potentially integrate this data into our performance to kind of model and predict out what we anticipate are the growth performance. And that takes this one. So
okay, so this is an example of real-time integration. I haven't mentioned this, but before pursuing a graduate education, I used to work for a chicken hatchery plant, and I was the supervisor. And I remember I had to digitalize like a lot of data. And there were two systems, one for reporting, well, just one digital system to report like production data, but there's also this other type of measurements that it needs to be recorded because just to monitoring the process. So I remember that it was time consuming, and if I missed digitalizing data for 2 or 3 days, that will translate to me doing like 2 or 3 hours, spend 2 or 3 hours on Saturday doing that. And after that, start doing my research, my weekly report. So I kind of like this because this is a real-time integration, because with our easy entry, the operator can upload that data instead of the supervisor, and then that is sent here to this report. So what we are seeing here is just the productivity of just one broiler breeder flock. It is actually has a hatchability standard, which is the fully genetic potential based on the genetic line that is in kind of blue color. Then the dark line is my actual hatchability. And then the pink line is my fertility. What we have in the x-axis is the flock age in week. And here in the upper, my KPR are fertility, hatchability, incubation, incubability divided by fertile. And the point here is that all of these require some mathematical operation that me as a supervisor, I am not doing it, because as soon as the operator start entering data into the system, I will automatically generate that information for me. And this is just for one flock, but a hatchery plants usually work with more than one flock. So I have one like a filter that can provide me the information by individually flock ID. So the next one is again, it's another example of real-time integration, but this is for research trial. This is like a template that we can set up right before a research trial is begin. So we have different, in this case, different tabs that will being populated with visuals depending as soon as we start entering data. And here, this one that we have here is just information about phase 1. The very first tab is the initials, but I just wanted to show how phase 1 is going to look like. Again, the upper layer, the KPIs defined based on the research needs. And what we can see here is that I have different visuals of important productive parameters like feed intake and total gains and average body weight. And right now, this information is being shown by treatment because that was my selection, my filter selection, but I can also filter by pen weight, by pen, or by gender if that information is in the data set. The next slide, Casey, is the same report. We have a QA phase visualization here where we can have, in this case, we are having the total feed by pen, and I can see the total amount of feed that has my entire population is given. And it's easy for me to spot if there is an error or probably an outlier. And since I haven't this information in real time, I can make amendment or double check and go back to see if did I read it, or if there was a typo, or if that measure wasn't correct. And the 3 lines represent just, in this case, the mean, the middle, and 2 standard deviation above and below. And everything it's outside this, it's considered as an outlier in this case, but this parameter, these are set up by the researcher. Do you have anything to add here, Casey?
Yeah, I was going to add a little bit. So as a researcher, most of my career doing applied research and analytical in the lab, you know, would be very conscientious, enter all my data, go back and correct it. As we noticed in the staffing that we have in the different barns, we potentially don't have time, we don't have the right staff. But these tools that I really wanted to develop was for me to be able to show the farm staff to say, in this case, pin 111, we need to go back and make sure we have all that feed data, or we didn't weigh something properly. It gives them a visual to say if it's below or above this line that we need to go double check our work that day they're in the barn. So if they're entering that data into easy entry, they get to see this instantaneously. It's not 2 days later and I could say, well, I can't tell you what the pigs weighed. It's been 2 days. But it's also with sow data for long-term trials and monitoring. Obviously, this example we put together was a nursery study, which is about a 6-week study. But if you're spending up to, over $100,000 to run a sow trial, and it's a 6-month to 12-month deal, you kind of want some updates of what's going on with your research. So these are tools that I need to serve my customers on the research, but also drain tools I wish I would have had as a research manager to help me be more effective and more accurate into our data. And we kind of built this for 2 different people. So the sponsor of the trial can log in and see their progress. The farm workers can see where potential errors are. And then the primary investigator can kind of see if the trial is going on right. And maybe I've had several trials working at the university that we've had to rerun a sow trial, especially it was a year-long trial that we had to repeat because we found out the premix wasn't mixed properly. But if we would have had some of these tools, potentially, we may have been able to find some of those quality issues faster. And so we just really wanted to showcase of how important it is to integrate the data, but also have it in real time and in a format that different people can understand and digest. And so that was kind of building these tools on who's going to be looking at the data, how is it going to be used? Do you want a weekly email based on this data? Do you want a dashboard to log into to see? Or do you want that, accessible to the entire team, or just maybe cut it down to the sponsor? And so that was kind of our thought process on these different examples we've put together and how we utilize these tools to help serve our customers as well. And that's kind of a short introduction to data. I mean, we could probably put on a week seminar with so many different people talking about data architecture management. But it's something that, is really important as we grow and make business decisions, and really important for researchers. And if you want to keep following us, I'm writing an innovation, manifest innovation, weekly newsletter on LinkedIn. And then we have our podcast, the Real P3 podcast, as well, to keep up to date with what we have going on. And our emails are listed there. So we are ready for any questions.
Well, great. Thank you very much, Casey and Liliana. That was really interesting, really nice, detailed walkthrough, kind of everything that goes into data, because we just, you hear a lot about data, but I don't know, if you're not kind of in this every day, you may not understand sort of all the different layers that have to go into being able to utilize it. And so I invite our audience to go ahead and enter any questions they have into the Q&A function at the bottom of their screen. I don't think we have any open ones right now, but I've got questions because I've been taking some notes here as we've been going along. So you may be familiar, there's been an antimicrobial resistance dashboard effort that NIAMRI's been involved in. And one of the challenges there was ontology. Right. So people abbreviate antibiotics differently, or they call things by different names. So is that the kind of challenge that you might see with some of your customers, where, maybe they abbreviate a food, feed ingredient differently, or maybe, different people call different things by different names?
Yeah, and so I've also been involved in the National Animal Nutrition Program. So that's also a very large database to use an example of what is it called, and the lab results we get in for third-party labs, they're called different things. But that's where it comes up, setting up your architecture and your data structure, because in your PDF or your lab submission, it's going to say different. But if you had a code in your database that maybe the person entering that data doesn't see, that translates that over, that's where we can make, we could say these 3 different names equals this in a database with some coding. And so that's what a lot of people don't see, that's part of cleaning the data. So you can manually do that, which we have done, and graduate students are great resources to manually change names. But also some of our tools and what tricks and traits that we've learned is we can translate that. But the key is also people understanding those different names. And that's kind of where we try to bridge that gap, because we understand animal science, we understand the terminology, so we can help the programmers get the response we want. And so that's also kind of something important to consider, is we can make tools easy, but the person cleaning the data or the system we're building to clean the data, do they understand what they're doing? Because that could also be dangerous.
Yeah. Great point. Well, we did have a question come in, and the question is, have you had clients wanting to track more antimicrobial usage to improve stewardship with regulations that changed in June? So we've gone from the OTC to prescription only. So
right now, most of our nutritional production clients are non-antibiotic. I've seen that trend go up, and we get into the larger systems, and a lot of people are trying to build their own systems to track that and monitor that. But I think, there's not a one size fits all. And as, Liliana pointed out, is you have to probably tie a lot of that into different connections of knowing that. And if you look at PQA standards, at least from the swine perspective, it's usually on a notebook that never leaves the farm. And so, in the government and understanding digital data, and as long as you have that backed up and things like that, we can start integrating that. But traditionally, that antibiotic use was in a notebook that maybe is in a filing cabinet and never really got entered. So that's, I think, the next step of companies wanting to track, is how do they digitize that data, where in my history, it is mostly never went into a computer, as long as they could produce that physical copy in case they were ever audited. But I do know a lot of producers are looking at that and using that as a tracking method. And in my research, we do monitor different antibiotic use to show if certain treatments help reduce that. So that's, as I said, that's something I put in my work, even if it's not requested. That, to me, that's part of that stewardship that I want to monitor, is are we getting less injectable medications, for instance, into our livestock? So as part of all my research that I conduct, that is something that I do provide, because I think that's a important data. But I think it's still that problem of digitizing that data and getting it in a format to where we could track it.
Yeah, great, thank you. So I again invite our audience to go ahead and put their questions in the Q&A. And so a question I had, you talked about data governance, and kind of that's where everything really starts. So, and kind of along with that, some of this data is kind of sensitive data. And so can you talk a little bit about your data governance and sort of accessibility?
Yes, so I'm an animal scientist, and when I started getting the IT world, that's the first thing the IT directors ask you about, right? And so that's the unique thing about with the tools today, is that we build under the company's governance, and we try to build within their systems that meet their requirements, because it is sensitive. And then also through some of our programming and coding, Hanor is a great example. is one of our clients that we've worked with and helped build their dashboards and visualization and APIs and all that. And they have certain people, the way they've programmed it, only have access to certain data. And then something else that we do provide, if we're managing that data and they didn't want it managed on external servers or internal that they would manage themselves, is we back up data. So we manually back that up, digitally back that up. We use, very high secure data to where it's all integrated and secure, and make sure we're backing it up, because that ransom, right? Because everybody, when you say cloud-based data storage, is well, what if I get ransomed or somebody hacks? But I would say between Microsoft and Amazon and these different companies, that security has been at the forefront of really securing that. And your data is almost safer in the cloud today than it is on an internal server in your hard room. Because if that server dies, or if a fire happens, like that data is gone. The same with, as I laugh about, I still have a box of data from my PhD work that's 20 years old and smells like pigs still. But if I ever had a fire, those video discs would be gone, and the paper, right, and I'd be looking back on it, and so.
Oh, I think Casey froze. Let's see, we did have another question come in, but I think
That's
we
from
may have-
Casey.
Yeah, here she comes again, maybe.
I just want to add that for those sensitive data, there's also row level security, where you can define, depending on the user, what information it's a specific user can access. And that's another way to handle sensitive data. Just provide, oh my God.
Sorry.
Maybe you shouldn't have talked about fires in the
Yes.
data. Oh my goodness. Did you have
I
a
apologize. I lost power, literally.
wow, well thank you for coming back by candlelight. So oh my goodness. Well, we did it while you were out. We did have another question come in the chat. And it says, you mentioned that on your podcast, you have brought people on outside of animal agriculture, brought on people who are from outside of animal agriculture. Have there been other projects that you've been involved with utilizing a One Health approach, which is working across animal, human, and plant sectors?
Yeah, so we've kind of addressed some of that through the Coffee and Careers in Animal Science program. We try to bring consumers on. I've actually had interns that aren't of animal science. So kind of learning from them, right, and getting consumer perceptions. We're trying to do more of that. And I think, in the livestock industry, more on the applied side, that is something we need to approach better at, is kind of talking through. And there's so much misinformation out there, and immediately out, and I can use today as an example. I was at my church Bible study, and she said, "Oh, you're a veterinarian." I said, "No, I'm the other type of doctor." And the first thing is you're holistic, more so, right? And I'm like, well, we all should be holistic in One Health. And I think there's a lot of disconnect across those. And so how do we, we do a lot of communication direct to consumer, but we don't do, in my mind, enough with to doctors, to veterinarians, different things of communicating how it is a One Health approach. And, just trying to go above that. And I try to bring in what I do in all walks of life and try to, enhance those conversations when I can.
Yeah, that's great. And that is a reminder. I don't think I have a slide on it, but we have opened up registrations for our One Health Interprofessional Education Program, which is about a 4-month-long program where we try to gather folks from across the different sectors at different career stages. So human health, animal health, environmental and plant health. And we go through antimicrobial resistant case studies. That's led by our education and training coordinator, Sarah Smith. So folks that are listening, look on Exchange and follow NIAMRI News and Events to get more information about that, because that is bringing people together to talk about that is, a way you kind of constantly have to be addressing that and communicating about that. So let's see, I don't know if we have any other questions coming in. I can kind of encourage people one last time to get their last questions in. Yeah, really thought it was interesting. So you've got some international engagement as well then.
Yes, so we work with and interview and talk to different producers across the different continents and outreach. And so we do, even on the data side of even helping us, we have a partner in South Africa, we have a partners in Ecuador, and then we have also, animal nutrition consultants that we work with and partner on our outreach and different messaging across to different continents. So I work with a lot of international companies on the research side of things, more on the business and bringing new products to market. And, I've spent a lot of my research career and my nutrition career in finding antibiotic alternatives. And so gut health, immunology, that's kind of been a backbone of my work. And so that is, to me, borderless. So I live in the US, but I like to see myself as a global, thought leader and work across to different people and different ideas.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I imagine you see different challenges in the different regions of the world, and changes or differences in production systems and approaches. So kind of understanding that and being able to address that through data could be pretty powerful. Right. Well, I don't see other questions coming in, so I think I'll share some of the last slides we have here for upcoming NIAMRI events. If I can. So our next member spotlight will be November 7th, the first Tuesday of November. We're going to be featuring the University of Vermont Ag and Life Sciences. So please join us for that. We also have a bioinformatics workshop coming up during November, I think 13th through the 17th. That'll have a focus the first 3 days on bacterial bioinformatics, and then the last 2 days will be focused on viral in bioinformatics. There's more information available about that on NIAMRI Exchange. And we'd like to thank Casey and Liliana for their excellent presentation today. Really learned a lot again about data and data structure, and then how it can be applied in your industry. So we'd like to thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you for having us.